What's going on, RIZZLE fam? Today we're getting back into the Pooh Shiesty drama. For those who haven't been paying attention, he found himself facing some pretty heavy charges. Thanks to the fact that he left some evidence behind and the feds were able to link some of the bills to his Instagram account, we could see him doing serious time. But that's just for one charge. He's facing like 3 at this point, but it looks like he might be getting out soon. So why does Shiesty thinks his day behind bars are over? So we all know by now that Pooh Shiesty is a rapper from Memphis, Tennessee. He's been a pretty big deal ever since Juicy J of the Three-Six-Mafia co-signed him. He's had features from some pretty big names like Lil Durk, Gucci Mane, and 21. Unfortunately though, Pooh Shiesty also couldn't keep on the straight and narrow to really hit the mainstream in any kind of big way. All of his troubles started with a robbery back in 2020. Pooh Shiesty and one of his homies, Bobby Brown, tried to hit a lick. Stories about the whole thing vary a little bit. Some of the stories have said that they met up to buy a pair of Jordans. Some say that they were buying a little something to smoke on, in addition to paying for a green McLaren they had been renting. Why they were there doesn't really matter at the end of the day. What does matter is that after they had started the trade, one of the dudes they were buying stuff from hopped into the passenger seat of the car. That's when Shiesty pulled out a Draco and told him to leave the shoes in the car. He got out quick, but Brown was holding him up trying to take all his jewelry. The dude fought back, and Shiesty let off a round that ended up hitting the dude in the butt. Then Shiesty peeled out with a quickness to get away from the scene of the crime. Unfortunately for Shiesty, a whole Louis Vuitton bag fell out of the driver's seat and into the street, filled with over $40,000. Not only did he lose a whole bunch of money, but that's also the very thing that would connect Shiesty to the crime. Shiesty claims that both the victims were armed when everything went down, but that's just kind of hearsay. Now, if Shiesty were to get convicted on this charge, there's a possibility of life in prison. To make matters worse, this could have been just a state case. Instead, since Pooh Shiesty had such a big name, the whole thing went federal. This is bad for Shiesty for a couple of different reasons. First of all, there's the fact that the FBI has pretty much everything at their disposal for use in the case, and there's a lot more pressure for witnesses to comply. At first, Shiesty wasn't planning on pleading guilty to the whole thing, but that changed in October of 2021. His lawyer said, "We've entered into plea negotiations because there have been developments in the case that I think changed the dynamics of the case. Both Bobby and Shiesty are going to be pleading guilty instead, probably because they received a deal for doing so from the prosecution." This brings us to how Shiesty got picked up in the first place. So, as rappers do, he was over at the gram flexing, posting pictures of his money, and he also made posts featuring that green McLaren from the case. Turns out that since the pictures Shiesty had posted were such good quality, the investigators were able to make out all the numbers on one of the serial numbers of the $100 bills. That's pretty much the biggest reason as to why the whole trial is kind of a sure shot for the prosecution. To make matters worse, Pooh Shiesty found himself in the middle of another legal scandal before they even held a trial for this whole thing. In June of 2021, he was connected to another shooting, and as a result, the judge ordered him to be held without bond right after the incident came to light. We gotta be honest about this one. The fact that the dude was in the middle of a criminal investigation that was a national news story, but still somehow ended up in this situation, is insane. That, mixed with the self-snitching going on, is just crazy. Shiesty was really wilding out for a minute. What went down that night happened like this. Shiesty was over at a strip club in Miami-Dade County in Florida, having a good time when, according to witnesses, someone decided they were gonna rob Shiesty. The initial report said that he had about $40K on him. And while that's unlikely, that is about how much was in the LV bag. So maybe that's just a nice round number he likes to keep on him. Anyway, Shiesty was absolutely not happy that someone had just made a whole fool of him. So somehow, over the course of the evening, Shiesty started popping off. One of them hit a security guard in the leg. According to the witnesses, it was fired at the ground, but it ricocheted and made contact with security. It was also caught on video. So Pooh Shiesty's been locked up basically since July, which means he hasn't been putting out new music. He's really not sure where he's going to end up in the future, and he's staring at life in prison, maybe. Once again, I can't stress this enough. Why? How? Couldn't he have just lived a little bit more quietly and avoided this whole thing? Like, obviously, he could have just not tried to rob the dude in the first place, since you already know it isn't like he ain't got money. But even aside from that, don't get on the gram and flex like crazy with all this money like that when you know you're under investigation. Self-snitching is one of the most embarrassing things you can do in the rap game. Meanwhile, bro's over here posting the green McLaren, and then you're gonna go ahead and start popping off shots in the club? For why though? So Shiesty's in lockup. He's changing his plea to hope that he gets off with maybe just a few years. But at the same time, this is a whole federal case, and there are 2 different parts of it. All of it together could easily be life in prison, especially if he wasn't about to take the plea deal, so at least there's that. But DJ Academics just had an ex-Department of Homeland Security guy on who broke down the case and said dude's gonna get a minimum of 5 years, but probably somewhere closer to 10.
Closer to 10.
Closer to 10.
I'll say, yeah. 5 minimum.
At least Shiesty's finally had the common sense to go with the plea though, because that could be the difference between life and 10 years. Anyway, here's what Shiesty had to say about the whole thing. Shiesty released a statement from prison on where he's at in all this, saying, "I'ma be back in a minute, won't be too long till I'm free. I love all my fans and the ones who still supporting me. I still remain untouched and unfuckwittable. They think it's over with me, that's okay. That's cool though. This is just a brief message. After these few words, I'm back silent. I'm going ghost. You gonna feel me if you need to hear me out. So keep that same energy, I still hear everything. My shit public records, so look me up. No 5K1s, no Rule 35s. Rats don't run in my blood, we bullies. I'm locked up, but my mind's still free. You can't lock that up. I've been through worse situations, but I'm at my best right now. I don't get no bigger than this. I'm the biggest. Hashtag free Shiesty." So we don't know if that means that they're trying to get him to snitch on some of the homies in exchange for his freedom, kind of like a 6ix9ine situation or what. Either way, he seems to be in good spirits about the whole thing, even though he's facing the potential for a lot of time. Not only that, but he also just dropped a freestyle from prison. A lot of the fans have a lot to say on the entire situation. One fan said they should really be letting motherfuckers record from prison, like with a mic and headphones. I don't see the harm in that. In a lot of other countries, people can and do release music while they're in prison. It's just a matter of how the system works. While he's not exactly a fan in the sense that we think about it, NLE Choppa also dropped a statement about the whole thing on Twitter to support his friends, saying, "Free Shiesty. I believed in you before this day and even more afterwards. I always knew your potential wouldn't be denied. Unfortunately for you right now, but we gotta go through the rain to darkness to see the light, thug." So is Shiesty gonna get off, or is he gonna spend the next 20 years in lockup? Did he mess up, or is the system just out to get him? And if you dug what we are seeing here, you definitely gotta check this next one out, cause it's messy.